Welcome back to the daily Living Jewish Kitzur Shulchan Aruch class. Yesterday we began section 59 of the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. Quite a fascinating chapter. And we learned that not only do we make brachos on food, but we also make brachos on good and bad news. So we can understand why a person would want to make a bracha on good news, but why would you want to make a bracha on bad news? So firstly, just to recap what we studied in the first halacha, we learned that if a person hears very good news, he should thank Hashem for it. There are two brachas that could be made. If the good news only benefits him alone, then he would say the bracha of Shehechiyanu v'kiyimanu v'giyanu nizman hazeh. And if it benefits both him and others, he would say the bracha Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam hatoiv v'hameitiv. Hashem is good and he does good. Now nowadays we do err on the side of caution as far as not making an unnecessary bracha, and therefore we're not quick to make brachas for good news, because but we certainly do want to thank Hashem for it. Maybe sponsor a bracha, express our thanks to Hashem, make a prayer. But for very good news, a bracha can be recited. If it just benefits him, then it's Shehechiyanu, and if it benefits others as well, then it's Hatay v'hameitiv. So that's pretty much what we learned in the first halacha. So maybe if somebody won the lottery, for example, then that would be a time to make Shehechiyanu, but for other things as well. In halacha Beis, in the second halacha, we learned that just as a person needs to bless Hashem for the good, he needs to bless Hashem for the bad. And yesterday we discussed, how is that possible? How can a person bless Hashem for something bad that happens, and not only bless Hashem, but do so joyfully? So the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch explained that even when something bad happens to a person, that too is from a loving Father. It's out of Hashem's kindness. Because as a result of the person experiencing that difficulty, it may do away with any negative effect that he may have had on his neshama, so that when he goes to heaven, his neshama is clean. Because a person would rather 70 years of suffering in this world than one additional moment in Gehenna, in hell. So when a person does experience physical suffering, it actually is a kindness of Hashem that's cleansing the person, any dirt on his neshama, so he could go straight to heaven. That's one explanation that was brought by the Kitzur. And the Tanya, in I think chapter 27 or 28, I think 27, gives another explanation. The Tanya says that there are two types of goodness that comes from Hashem. There's revealed good and hidden good. And the hidden good is often a higher form of good. Since it's such a high form of good, therefore it's perceived down here as bad. The goodness is too great for us to be able to perceive it. So sometimes when a person experiences physical hardship, not only is it coming from a loving Father, from a loving God, out of his love for us and care for us, but it could be a greater form of kindness than revealed goods. Now, as souls and bodies, that's pretty hard to be able to feel, because if a person is dealing with physical hardships, it's real. It's if it's a hardship, it means that it's hard. But the knowledge that it's not that it's by divine providence, that it's coming from Hashem, that a person is not just a victim of chance or of somebody else's wickedness. If a person acknowledges that the hardships are coming from Hashem, and within them may be tremendous kindness that he is not able to perceive, so together with the difficulty, he will also be able to feel that Hashem is with him. and be able to feel Hashem's kindness. And so we bless Hashem not only for good but for bad as well. So as we'll see soon, person finds out that a close relative passed away. There's a bracha that's made for that. The bracha would be Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech ha'olam. Blessed are you, Hashem, our God, King of the world. Dayan ha'emes, the judge of truth. So everything is truthful that comes from Hashem. And one final point, which I mentioned yesterday, was that what I've heard from people that have gone on a journey from not being very strong believers to being strong believers was that they felt that when they feel that when they are confronted with challenges, they are in so much of a better space when they know that it's not by chance, but it's by Hashem, out of His kindness, than they were when they thought that they were just a victim of somebody else's cruelty or negligence. So yes, hardships will remain hard, but realizing that they have been planned by Hashem out of His kindness, even if we do not know why. People often ask, why does Hashem do that? It's not for us to answer because we're not gods. If we knew Him, we'd be Him. So we're not here to understand why Hashem does what He does, but the very knowledge that everything that happens to us, that everything that we experience is coming from a loving God, is itself at the same time very comforting and very strengthening. And we make a bracha for that as well. So we acknowledge Hashem not only for the good that He does, but for the bad that He does as well, because to us it appears as bad, but in truth we realize that that too is a much greater good that is perhaps beyond our comprehension. We said if he heard a few good newses, I don't know if you pronounce it like that, a few things that are good news and a few pieces of information that are bad news, he would only make one bracha on each. Okay. Now what happens if he hears good news, but the good news has a negative follow-up? So something fortunate happens, or he receives good news, even though it is likely that this benefit will give rise to bad. As when he finds a precious object, so the guy maybe just got something very valuable, he just found, I don't know, $1,000. But if the king is to discover this, the king is not only going to take that which he found, the king is going to take everything he has. So right now things are good, but as a result of this good, things may become very bad. So we focus on what's happening right now. If right now it's good for him and others, he'll say HaTov HaMeitiv. And if later something bad comes as a result, he'll say the bracha for that. Also, vice versa. If disaster strikes or someone receives bad news, even though most probably this adversity will turn to his advantage, for example, a person found that his field is flooded and his crops are ruined, but the subsiding flood water is of great benefit to him because it waters his field. So right now he's experiencing a flood, but in the long run, he's going to experience a benefit. So right now when he experiences the disaster, he would say the bracha for bad, dayan ha'emes. And when he experiences the good, he will thank Hashem for the good. I'm sure he'll discuss soon. Another example is if a person finds out that a relative died, but as a result of that, he just became a millionaire because he inherited that person. So there's bad news and there's good news. So each thing deserves a bracha of its own. If right now he's hearing bad news, then he'll make a bracha for that. If subsequently he inherits it, this person, he'll make a bracha of good news for that. Okay. And then a more general point, aside from actually making a bracha, is that a person should always accustom himself to say, whatever Hashem does is for the good. Kol ma da'avid rachmana, the top of it. And this is from a Gemara. The Gemara relates that, was it Nachum or Akiva? I think Akiva. The two stories. I'm not sure which one's which, so I'll share them both. And we'll conclude with that so that we could catch Mincha before the sun sets. The first story was of Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva was asked to... Okay, I hope I'm not confusing the two stories, but I'll try my best. Either way, he was asked to... I think Rabbi Akiva... Okay, we'll try our best. Somebody was traveling, and he came to the town, and he tried to move into the town. And there was no place for him to stay. And he said, this too is for the good. Or he said, whatever Hashem does is for the good, depending on which story is which. And so he left the city, and he went to a nearby field, and he set up shop for the night. He had with him a donkey to carry his belongings, and he had a rooster to wake him up in the morning, and he had a candle to give him light so that he could study Torah late into the night. To cut a long story short, through the course of the night, things went from bad to worse. First, an animal came and killed his donkey, and then another animal came and killed his rooster. Now he has no donkey to carry his belongings and no rooster to wake him up in the morning, until a wind came and blew out his flame. He's now sitting in the dark, in the woods. It's dead quiet there, and you could literally do nothing. Reminds me of this past Tikkun Nel, where just when I thought I was about to do an all-nighter, there was load shedding. Anyhow, this was a lot worse than that, because he's in the woods, and at every step of the way, and with every bad thing that happened, he said, this too is from Hashem. Everything Hashem does, or everything that Hashem does, is for the good. And in the morning, he discovered that there were robbers, and the robbers ransacked the city. And as a result of them not letting him into the city, he was spared. And as a result of his donkey and rooster being killed, the robbers didn't see him. They didn't make any noise. And as a result of his light being put out, the robbers didn't see him as well. So what all seemed to be terrible ultimately was there to help him. I guess the second story I don't have time for right now. Well, I'll say it's super short. There was a messenger that was sent to take a box of treasures to the king. And he stopped at an inn, and he woke up and he found that all the treasures in the chest had been stolen and switched for sand. Well, he realized this only when he arrived at the king. And the king, he realized he's in big trouble. He was supposed to be giving the king a box of jewels from the community, and instead it's a box of sand. And just then an angel arrived and told the king, this is very special high-tech warfare. And you throw the sand at your enemies, it will turn into arrows and kill them, and that's what happened. So what seemed to be terrible ended up being to his advantage. But the common denominator in both these stories is that the people that it happened to, instead of becoming broken and upset, said everything that happens is for the good. And so we should accustom ourselves to realize that anytime anything happens, we should say, this too is for the good. Everything Hashem does for the good. Everything comes from Hashem. Everything's by divine providence. We're never a victim of chance. And that will give us the strength to be able to hopefully see only good.